There's 11 passages, okay? And there are 4 questions per passage. Those questions, you have about 29 seconds, longer if you're sitting an exam with extra time, but that will be individual. 29 seconds per question. And they look a bit like this. So this looks like quite a long text, if I'm honest. And we sort of talked about how you might approach such a long text in the exam last time, scanning for numbers, for nouns, for sort of things that jump out at you rather than reading it fully. Okay. Just having the sort of anchor points in each paragraph so that when you then look at the question, you can try and find that specific idea and then answer the question as best as possible. Okay. So for the true false can't tell, each question is going to have a separate statement. And it will be something like, for this paragraph, this passage, it says the state of China has always detested Uyghur Muslims. Okay. That's your statement. And you want to really be picking out the key parts of that statement to then find in the paragraph or the passage. Okay. Now, probably the most obvious thing to underline Uyghur Muslims and this idea of detesting. So this is a very strong feeling here. Okay. You're trying to either prove something, disprove it, or say there's insufficient evidence to decide. Okay. So we then scan our paragraph. First time I see this is here. Okay. Now when we then read further, we can see that we don't actually have this strong feeling throughout history necessarily. Okay. So it's not the inevitable or predictable outcome of Chinese communist policies towards ethnic minorities. So this detention doesn't necessarily add up, is what they're saying here. If I scan the remainder of paragraphs, this term doesn't come up again, so it's probably this first paragraph we're going to be basing our answer on. Okay. So it's sort of a brief way of how you pick apart your statements, find key ideas, and then scan your passage to look for that idea being mentioned directly. Now, in old UCAT, you had about 80% true, false, can't tell questions. Nowadays, it's about 10%. That being said, if you can nail the ideas and the techniques we talk about, then you'll be able to tackle the other types of questions, which are more statementy questions. So what does true mean? How do we decide something fits into one category if we don't know the definition of that category? For something to be true, we need it to be directly stated in the passage. Okay. So let's take that example we just had. If it's stated in the passage that the state of China has always detested Uyghur Muslims, it's saying it explicitly, then that's obviously a true statement. The other type is inference, which is a little bit more tricky, and I believe we'll have some examples of that later, but it's whether or not it's a logical conclusion of what they said or what they've implied. Okay. So here's an example. The passage. French occupation of Ruhr was a post-World War I event where French and Belgian forces occupied the industrial Ruhr region of Germany between 1923 and 1925, as a response to Germany's failure to make reparation payments leading to economic and political tensions. If we have a statement, the occupation of the Ruhr industrial region occupation was due to failed reparation payments, well, it's saying it was a response to failed reparation payments. It's explicitly saying that. Maybe not in the exact same words, but it's saying the same thing. So it's true. Now, can somebody tell me what does implied mean? We'll move on to our inferences. So if you just want to write it in the chat, or you'll feel free to use the raise hand function, I can unmute. Yeah, great. So it's inferred, it's not directly stated, it's hinted at. Brilliant. Suggested, exactly. So your inference isn't going to be quite the same. It's sort of a blur between your true and can't tell, but there's sufficient evidence for you to be convinced that this is true. So here's an example passage. Amazon has grown significantly since its launch. To date, a vast proportion of the population are using Amazon to purchase essential items. Now, this statement, Amazon are one of the better online retailers. Well, if there is a vast proportion of the population using Amazon to purchase things, probably yes, it's one of the better online retailers. Otherwise, people would not be using it. Okay, so you can infer that the statement is true. Okay. Now, if we change one word in that statement to best, then it's a can't tell statement. We can tell it probably is a good online retailer or it's functioning well, but we can't say it's necessarily the best one that exists. Okay. We don't have enough information in the passage to make that judgment. So we're looking for that evidence. Fine. So the opposite of true is going to be false. And again, there are two types that we see. We have contradiction. So again, we'll show you an example in a moment, but it means that the statement that you're given is directly opposite or going against the passage, what's said in the passage. It's a bit like the directly stated for true, but instead it's directly stating the opposite. If that's confusing to you, just stick with it's going against what the passage says. The statement goes too far. So this is where we're taking things to the extreme. So like I suggested with best, that's you can't tell in that scenario we just had, but it is possible that we don't have enough information to say it is a superlative or something, but we have enough information to say it isn't. Bear with me and it will make a lot more sense. So here's the example of contradiction. I'm hoping some of you have at least heard of Star Wars, and it started in 1983, I think, based on this. So George Lucas sought to revive his much-loved Star Wars franchise with the release of The Phantom Menace in 1999 and 16 years after the release of Return of the Jedi, 1983. So a false statement would be if we were to say The Phantom Menace was released in 1983. We have a statement as to when The Phantom Menace is released, and this is just a completely different number. They've replaced the number with the one for the original release date. So this is contradicting what the statement is saying. So going too far, okay? With the supply of tomatoes for tomato ketchup becoming difficult to get hold of, consumers find themselves turning to dominant retailer Heinz, one of the few remaining manufacturers left. If I gave you the statement, Heinz is the only retailer with tomato ketchup left, why it is wrong? Can anyone tell me what is the word or words in this passage that tell us that that is incorrect? Exactly. Brilliant. Okay. So the parts there are odds. Heinz is the only, so this is us taking it too far. Sorry, it's not for some reason working. And then if we look at the passage, it says one of the few. That implies there are at least two, maybe three other retailers remaining. Okay. So this statement has gone too far. If it said that Heinz is one of the only remaining retailers, that would be fine. So this is going against what the passage is telling us. Okay. If you see statements that have only or superlative like best, worst, etc., think a little bit more critically. That's sort of what should be giving you warning bells in your brain. Okay. So here's another thing that people tend to trip up on. Okay, someone said, isn't this also kind of like contradiction? Kind of, yes, but I suppose the difference here is it's not, we don't have the true information in the passage. It doesn't say there are 30 remaining manufacturers. It's saying that they've concluded Heinz is the only retailer. So it's I suppose for something to be contradiction, we need to have in writing the fact that opposes the statement, if that makes sense. Okay, so can't tell. This is the one people tend to trip up on. It means that you can't be certain of the statement based on the information on the passage. You can't tell that it's definitely true, but you can't tell it's definitely false. The important thing here is it's based on the information of the passage. You cannot use external knowledge. Okay. If you know it's true from your general knowledge, but it's not in the passage, it doesn't matter. If I tell you in my passage that, I don't know, bananas are actually orange in colour, and the question asks you, are bananas yellow? Well, from your general knowledge, you could probably say that bananas are yellow. From the passage, that's not true. That's false. Okay. So you need to kind of suspend your belief of reality when you're going into these and just focus on the information you're given. Everything external to that passage doesn't exist. Okay. Right. So an example of a can't tell statement. Joe Biden became president of the USA in 2021. Can't tell. Joe Biden was elected in January 2021. Well, all we know is that he became president in 2021. It doesn't mean that he was necessarily elected in that year. He could have been elected in 2020. Maybe that's the handover period. He could have been elected in February, March, April, any month of 2021. Could be the very end of 2021. But based on the passage, we don't know that. You might be able to say, well, I know that from my general knowledge because I know how the USA election system works. Great. But for the purposes of this question, that's whatever you know externally is not true. Why can't you say false? Because there isn't enough information to say it wasn't in January 2021. All we know is that at some point in 2021, Joe Biden became president. He was elected at some point. It could very well be January 2021, but there's nothing to say that it's a different date. Okay. And there's nothing to say this is pushing it too far by trying to think of an example here that would fit. But the point is there isn't enough information to say it's true or it's false. So we can't tell. Because it's not inference in this situation. Someone asked, why can't we use inference? Unless you know from external knowledge how the US election system works, there is no information in the passage that says when elections take place compared to when someone becomes president. So it says became president in 2021. Again, he could have been elected in January. He could have been elected in 2020, December. Okay, he could have been elected in the end of 2021. We don't know. We just know at some point in that year he became president. Yeah, so everything needs to be pretty straightforward. It's all about testing your understanding and the logical comprehension of the passage. I think as we go through some examples, you guys should be able to pick it up pretty quickly. And Alan, I'm going to get us to do some examples to see if that helps solidify your understanding a bit. So, practice question, and then I'll explain how it relates to external knowledge. If everyone can put an answer in the chat, that would be great. A, B, or C. So I'll read out the passage whilst you're having a go. Jennifer Aniston has had many notable film appearances in films such as We Are the Millers, Horrible Bosses, and The Breakup. She has a remarkable acting pedigree with both her parents being fellow performers. The statement is Jennifer Aniston worked in America. Fantastic. So, knowing that films We Are the Millers, Horrible Bosses, and Breakup were filmed in America would be our external knowledge. Okay. It's not in the passage. For all we know, these films could have been filmed in Australia, Sweden, somewhere completely different. We don't have enough evidence in the passage to support a true or false statement here. Okay, brilliant work, everyone. And yes, exactly, Edia. So, next statement. Jennifer Aniston's parents were both actors. Got a few different answers this time. So, a lot of people are going for C. I'm going to highlight some information in the passage and see if that changes your mind. Exactly. So the answer to this one is A. Now, you might say, oh, performers could be anything. Absolutely true. However, if we read the full sentence, she has a remarkable acting pedigree. Pedigree refers to your family, okay, your family tree, and then says both her parents are fellow performers. Well, we know she's an actress and that she's apparently got family that act, therefore we can infer that they must be actors. Exactly. So someone's asking, how do I manage to solve a question like that if the passage is really long and short ones are easier? Sorry, someone's asked a question. So in the actual exam, the passages are likely to be longer, but the purpose of us going through these smaller ones is to get you to think about the technique. It's all about exam technique and practice. If you're able to understand the purpose of the questions and how you determine which one's correct, which one's not correct, okay, then you can apply this to larger passages. The other thing to realize is, as I was saying before, let's say you've got 3 paragraphs in your passage, the answer will often lie in just one of them. And one passage, sorry, paragraph could very well be just a few lines long. The use of the word fellow implies they are, but also it's about the pedigree. Okay, I'm going to move on from this question now, but please do keep asking questions. So back to what we said at the start. Okay. Okay. We've seen the paragraph before, sorry, passage, we've seen the statement before. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to try and answer this, and then we'll talk it through. Okay. As time goes on, I'm going to start underlining important things to try and help you. So a lot of people are saying can't tell. Remember what I said about things that are superlatives or pushing too far? Yes, exactly. So if you look at the superlative, you need to ask yourself, can we say for certain this is true? Is it always the case? Brilliant. Yes, everyone's getting it now. Fantastic. So there are sort of 2 things you need to be doing, and I guess this is part of why time juggling is so hard in this exam. You need to have sort of outlined the passage in your mind, sort of look for unusual words, things that jump out at you. Look at the statement and pick apart what's going to help me determine what's going on here. Is there a superlative? Is there a key concept? So the answer here is false. Okay. So your keyword, words even, are here. This is probably rated as easy because it's the first paragraph, so it should be pretty easy to find. Now, the first paragraph says it's not inevitable or predictable, therefore the statement is false. It's contradicting it. Fine. So more questions then. Have a go at this one. Again, 30 seconds. You've not seen this passage before. So I'm going to say something, which one of my tutors always said to me, which is be confident in your answer. Some people say question marks. Be confident because whether or not you put the right thing, a question mark is not going to end up giving you a mark. It's just dependent on the answer itself being correct. So be confidently correct or incorrect. That's fine. You have got a third of a chance to get this right, even if you're just guessing. Okay, fine. So a lot of people have now responded. Let's have a look. So we're asked, based on the information that we've read, whether Federer has at least 4 children. If we are to briefly skim, we can see someone called Roger Federer, presidential visit, twin boys. I'm just reading out what my brain picks out. Tennis support staff, Wimbledon, something about 30s, genius, accuracy of shots, football, compensate, Swiss master, Tim Henman. There's a statement from that person, former British #1, Olympic speculated in Tokyo 2020. So just having some ideas of where it might look. Okay. And when I read through this, I saw twin boys in the first paragraph. The key idea in the statement is children. So if I read through the first paragraph, find the twin boys, and then read the sentence that contains what I thought, traveling tutors for his school-aged daughters, nannies to look after his twin boys, blah, blah, blah. Okay, nothing else about children. Daughters is plural, twin boys, also plural. Okay. So he must have at least 4. We don't know if he has more. He may have more. But if you have plural daughters, let's say 2 minimum. Twin boys, that's also 2. Okay. At least 4. Does that make sense to everyone? Great. Perfect. So work on getting those anchor points in place. Look for things that sort of jump out at you, like names, so nouns of things, things that you don't often see in a sentence. So words like that, is, was, whatever, he will, etc. These are things your brain sort of filters out because it's context. But the things that are new are going to pique your brain. And that's going to help you have anchor points as to where to look for things. Okay. Great. Okay. So new statement, have a go. You've already read the passage. Think about your anchor points. Which passages of part of this passage is it going to be in? Which sentence? Read that sentence and then read around that sentence if you need to. So somebody's asked me how can I manage the timing whilst doing so. So the first question in your set of 4 is going to take the longest because you need to set your anchor points up, okay? Which is why you scan it. Spend probably no more than 10 seconds scanning it. Then read the statements. Look in the passage for your anchor point, its relevance, that concept, and then make a decision. And then as you go through, you should remember roughly in the passage where these concepts are coming up and be able to just answer the follow-up questions. Well done for using the exclamation mark. Brilliant. Okay, fine. So this question is asking us about leg injuries. Okay, limiting factor, how long his career continues to last. I remember reading something about an injury earlier. Okay, So the question is, where is it? Does anyone know? Can anyone spot it? Second paragraph. Excellent. Okay, fine. So it says something about his legs start to go. Okay. And further information about potential injury there. We don't actually have a lot of information here. We know that there is something to do with legs, but there's no reference to specific injuries. Okay. It's an example. The paragraph itself doesn't say actually the problem is for his career is only his injury to his legs. Well, actually, no. What it's saying is part of it's based on his accuracy of shots and pinpointing targets and serving. Okay. But when his legs go, which at some point they were probably going to go, he doesn't have a teammate to compensate. Well, it's also not saying that there is definitely an injury right now. It is just saying that as people's legs go, they can't work as well. Fine. So we don't have specific injuries here. We don't have something saying it's properly a limiting factor. Okay. We do have something to say it's his legs are probably going to contribute to his career, but overall it's not. We don't have enough information here. Okay. Fine. So new statement, same passage. 30 seconds. We have a bit of variety this time in our answers. It's B or A or C. So somebody tell me, which paragraph am I looking at? Third paragraph. Excellent, everyone. Fine. So we're talking about Henman now, and we know that Henman says something in this paragraph. Okay. We saw the name earlier, and it says in Britain. Okay. So think about Federer beating Henman. We have a number here, which also can be helpful for us, and we have this paragraph. Okay. Now the answer here is actually C. So if we read paragraph 3, we can see that the reverse is true. Henman has beaten him twice. Okay. On the other side of it, we don't know if Federer has beaten him twice. So if I highlight this, so Henman having the distinction of beating Federer twice, but we don't know whether or not Federer has beaten Henman or if it was in Britain. Okay, we can't tell. Okay, so last one on this passage. Have a go. Give you 30 seconds. Okay, so someone asked me, how do I know it's, for the previous question, how do I know it's not false? Because something about Swiss Master and Henman is British. If we read the sentence I pointed out, so this is pointed out by Henman, who's become close friends despite having beaten him twice in his own backyard. So the implication here is Henman has beaten Federer twice rather than the Swiss Master. Okay, so we've got a few answers coming through. Well done, everyone. Can someone tell me which paragraph am I looking at for this? Good. So you might think, oh, it's logical, it'll be the final paragraph. However, it is actually the third paragraph, and that's not uncommon. They'll ask questions about the same paragraph over and over. Okay. So the question, we have unexpected defeats weighing heavily on Federer's mind, possible retirement. So we're looking for those ideas. Well, we can see defeat, so not yet hemorrhaging defeat, but the word defeat is there. But it's hard to envisage him tolerating repeat losses to inferior opponents. Okay, so this is implying an unexpected defeat, but it doesn't say anything about retirement. Okay, still is playing, starts to dip, and he is losing to people he wouldn't have dreamt to. That will become tough. So it has not yet become a problem for him. So this is false. This is hypothetical. This is the future. This is not a current problem. Okay, fine. I hope that makes sense. We'll do some more practices. The length of the passages you are now seeing, by the way, these are the length you'll have in the actual exam. And I hope you can see that you only need to focus on a small part of the passage. So it's false, Tom, because this was a hypothetical. So sorry everyone, I'm going to go back quickly. If we read this, I know he starts playing, but if his form starts to dip and he's losing, that will become tough. So although it's not mentioned anything about retirement, what it's saying is that this isn't a current problem. He isn't facing unexpected defeat. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please let me know. So let's go to the next one. Okay. Whilst you guys answer this, I'm going to answer the question, how do I manage the timing pressure? So timing in verbal reasoning is hard. Okay. The reason for this is you're expected to see a passage for the first time, understand it, digest it, and then answer a question on it, right? If you, in the run up to your UCAT, I recommend reading maybe 10 pages a day of any book, doesn't matter what, even a newspaper or an online journal, whatever you want to read. That will help you to improve your speed of reading because that's just how your brain gets used to things. But the second thing is it will help you to start picking out ideas and opinions a lot easier too. Okay. So that's the first thing I would recommend. The second thing is start timing yourself on how long it takes you to read a passage. That will then give you an idea of how much time you need to cut down on and just practice. Practice reading passages, practice questions. This will be the best way for you to go forwards. If you are in a school and there's lots of you doing UCAT, get together, make up questions about passage. Okay. Fine. So, displaying gambling ads during live sporting events is currently permitted. That's our statement. So we're looking for gambling ads, we're looking live events and it being permitted. So if you look here, gambling companies, tobacco, MPs, call for gambling, public health issue, blah, 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 blah. A ban of ads should be imposed. Okay, that already looks promising. Tory minister saying something, affiliate marketing, more affiliate marketing. Okay. I will answer that question in a minute, Adio, if that's okay. So we know, having skimmed and gotten sort of pick points that we're probably going to be looking at the second paragraph. Okay. Now, if we have a look at the second paragraph where it says a ban gambling ads during live sporting events should be imposed, it's saying that a ban should be imposed. That means currently there is not a ban. This is an inference that it is currently true. Okay. Fine. I will stop trying to draw. Okay. Next question. I'll give you 30 seconds and I'll answer Adia's question. So, Adia, you said that you wanted to do psychology rather than maths. I cannot stress this enough. Your A-level grades are what make up your application and have the biggest influence. Okay. The boundary that they need to achieve doesn't change. And resitting your A levels is a problem because there are then fewer places you can apply to. Why am I bringing this up? How is this relevant to your question? I am bringing this up because if you start picking subjects that you are not going to enjoy, inherently you end up doing worse. Okay. And if it's not something you're good at because whatever reason, and it's not necessary to do, then I wouldn't do it. Okay. You do not have to do maths. It can be useful for sure, but only in the sense that it complements chemistry with calculations you might have to do. But I know plenty of people who did chemistry, biology, didn't do maths, and got the grades they needed for med school. And that was the biggest differentiation. Okay. It's not necessary, no. The only things you must study in order to do medicine are biology and chemistry. Okay, so we've got lots of answers through for this question. Let's have a look at our key ideas. So cross-party group, Labour and Tory. Okay, so let's have a look. Which paragraph are we looking at, everyone? So cross-party of MPs. Brilliant. So first and third, this highlights the other thing, which is you might have to look in a couple of places to get to an answer. Cross-party and Tory. That's the main things we need to be looking for here. Okay. Labour is also important, but I don't think we can actually see the word Labour on this page. Okay, so we see that there is a cross party, and cross parties probably include more than one party, or members of both parties, but we don't have an explicit mention of Labour. It could be a different party that they are cross partying. That makes sense. So we can't tell. Fine. Okay. Next one. That's quite small, isn't it? Let me just zoom in a bit for you. Okay. Getting some answers through. Well done, everyone. You're actually being really quick at these, so well done. Okay, so we've got a few varying answers, but we seem to be sitting between A and C. Okay, so this is more of a summary sentence. The main point of comparison between gambling companies and tobacco firms, so these are two ideas I'm thinking about, is the relative ease with which young people are hooked. Fine. So which paragraph am I looking at? 1 and 2. Excellent. Okay. Now, our key word here really is tobacco. And there is a similarity pointed out between the two about their potential harms, but we don't have anything more specific than that, really. Okay. All we see is that they should be prominent health warnings. That's it. Okay. And if you think about young people, it says young viewers who are protected from other sorts of temptations, whatever, but it doesn't mention that tobacco. That is only in relation to gambling here. So we can't tell. There's not sufficient information. Yes, brilliant. So the link between tobacco and young people not clearly stated. Fine. So group is particularly critical of news channels on TV that display betting ads. What do you think? So one thing I want to remind people is that the statement itself is saying that something is definitely happening in this. Okay. So group is definitely particularly critical of news channels. Okay. So our ideas here, we need to think about news channels that display betting TV ads. Okay. And critical. So this is really testing your comprehension. Do you understand what's going on? Because you need to understand the tone of the passage as well. But it's this thing here that is ringing alarm bells in my brain because there's nothing definite about this. Okay. There's no mention in this about specifically news channels. So how can this group be particularly critical of news channels? It's not. Okay. Therefore, this is false. They are not definitely doing this. Fine. Okay. Another passage. I think this is our last passage, but let me check. Yes, this is our last passage, everyone. Okay, again, a little bit of variation. That's not too bad. Okay, great. We got some answers coming in. So let me just, again, go through the hooks for this one. Cancer research, that's the thing that sticks out to my brain. Okay, vital quest, cure disease, equally important, detection, data, global challenge. Okay, fine. Next one, liquid biopsies, DNA theory, catch, insensitive, cancer research UK, critically, engineers and physicists, detectors, software developers, blah blah, new technologies. Those are the hooks I see. I'm showing this to you in both ways. I'll read the passage and read the question first, because some people prefer different ways. Okay. So if we now go to the statement, finding new ways to treat and cure cancer is becoming an obsolete strategy in cancer research. What do you think? Well, lots of you have said B, and you'd be correct. If we read the first paragraph, vital quest. Vital means that it is necessary. Okay. And this is in the context of continuation. So this is not obsolete. At no point in this passage did they mention it being obsolete. This passage is actually very much pro finding new ways to do things. Okay. Fine. Brilliant. Well done, everyone. So next one. Okay. You've got about 10 seconds left. Brilliant. Okay. So the spread of cancer marks a critical juncture in the possibility of its successful treatment. Yes. Spread is the important word here. Not explicitly stated, but if we read, even some of the most aggressive forms can be successfully treated if they're diagnosed before they've spread, which is, again, in the first paragraph, then we know that it is important that we catch this before it's spread. So this is implied. Okay. And I think that's the last one. So I'm going to quickly swap what I'm sharing. Okay. I'm going to check this is definitely in presenter mode. Brilliant. So today we talked a bit about true, false, can't tell and categorizing things. Practicing that categorization is something that's going to take a long time, or at least a little bit of work from you to understand which one's which. There are practice questions online. Obviously, with us, there are practice questions with full explanations as well. There's also the UCAT Consortium online, which has free questions. I don't think they have free explanations though. Okay. Practice your reading so you increase your speed. Practice the questions so you get comfortable with pinpointing concepts within different paragraphs, different parts of the passage, and then being able to answer them correctly and quickly. Okay. So this is a bit of advertisement. So we have UCAT live days coming up, which are again a little bit of, I guess, an overview of the entire UCAT itself. We'll keep doing these webinars, so you'll cover bits of this throughout, but these are really good days. They are intense. They have lots of practice questions and lots of different people as well to help you out. UCAT 10 for 10% off. I believe this is for the live day itself. So if you want to follow that link, please do. I'll keep it paused there for a moment. If you're all happy and would like me to move on, please let me know. So for this webinar, they are continuing, to my knowledge, on every Saturday. So 4 till 5 every Saturday. And if you can't catch them in real time, then you can watch them online. Okay. So I'm going to move the slides on. Please do leave us a review and drop your name in the chat as well. I'm sure they still have prize draws for different things. But this is also really useful for me, so I can try and tailor things to be more useful for you. And if you want to even, in fact, share today in the chat, then that would be great. And I can try and tweak things to be more useful for you guys next time. This is your time. It's precious, so I want to make it as useful as possible. The UCAT live days, so someone just asked me when those would be. So They vary, but they are running all through summer, and we have a couple of different circuits. So I think there are three circuits, sorry, options days. So there'll be Saturdays and Sundays every weekend until September, I think. But I don't know if Ash is still on here and can confirm. No, he's not. But I can get that sorted and relay to you guys that information. Okay. And then if you've got any questions, I'm gonna copy the Menti code so you can use that if you'd like to. Sorry, that wasn't meant to be a direct message to anyone. If you want to add questions on this, you may. And I'll just go back to the other slide, so if anyone wants to use that, they can. So, no, you're very welcome. Please feel free to go if you need to. Okay. Thank you, everyone. If you would like to leave, please go ahead. I won't be offended. Go and enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and I'll try and answer the questions that are coming through now. Okay. Why do I keep getting low scores on my UCAT mock? I'm expected to get 3,000, but I'm barely getting 2,000. Without sitting down and asking for your technique for each section, I think that's a hard thing for me to answer. What I can say is, whilst this is a time pressure to exams, one thing that students do fall down in is they panic and just click an answer. So they'll do that for the entire thing. That can work to your advantage because, for example, in this section, you had a third chance of getting that answer right. Okay. Now, if you're running out of time, it is much better just to spam answer something and hopefully you'll get some marks. But in order to get high marks, you need to be able to work accurately, and that means answering questions correctly at a high rate. So that's probably something to do with those. Okay. Um, I think there's one thing I would say for quantitative reasoning, because some people have mentioned that's a tricky one. I would get good at your mental maths for sure, because the UCAT calculator, we'll talk about this in future, but it's not great. It's quite clunky to use. So mental maths, being able to work quickly in your head is much more efficient. There are online free mental maths trainers. I think one's called maths.ai or something, mathstrainer.ai. So have a look for something like that just to keep yourself practicing every day, just a little bit. And I think that will really help. UCAT classroom days are not free. They do cost a bit of money, which is why you have the code that we mentioned earlier. So I think it's I'll go back to it in a moment, but yes. I've done so many practice questions, but I'm not getting better. I'm sorry to hear that because it must be extremely frustrating, and I remember being in that same position. It will come. And again, this is why I'm so heavy on the exam technique. If you get the technique down, you're more likely to get the correct answers and you're more likely to get them quickly. If you get them quickly, then you're going to go through questions faster and hopefully get a better score because you're doing it accurately as well. It's about working at the foundation level first, getting the technique and the understanding there, and then building up. If you're just doing practice questions and not reflecting on what you're doing wrong and what you're doing right, that can be really something that holds you back from doing better next time. And it's not something that we intuitively do. I think we just do exams and we get a mark back and we're like, cool, okay, move on. That's a very normal thing to do, but it's not going to help you in this situation. Okay, next question. UCAT is weird. Yes, it is weird. I think techniques is something that I'll go through as we go along, um, rather than answering this necessarily now. I think things that you need to do to practice and, you know, improve your speed, read a little bit every day, do a little bit of maths every day. For the other sections, I mean, if you're interested, you can do logic puzzles, but I don't think that necessarily helped me. That abstract reasoning is genuinely just practice, 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 because you'll start spotting patterns, and that's kind of the point. And situational judgment, we'll go through the technique specifically because, to be honest, that one is definitely based on technique. Don't think it's necessarily bad. I think it's good to have a standardized test, um, and it is less expensive. Being more competitive, I don't think it's any more competitive than it was. I think it actually sort of evens the playing field a little bit because it's not, oh, you have to do multiple tests, and if you do really well in one but really badly in another, oh well. So we spoke about this last time, probably about a month before you want to be doing practice, a month to 2 months, and last 2 weeks before, definitely intensifying that. I think scan the passage first, not necessarily read the whole passage, then look at the question, and then look for the answer and read properly around the answer. Okay, that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today, and I hope it was useful. Good luck with UCAT prep, and don't be too hard on yourself.